everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be discussing the entire Dior drama situation as it pertains to the Sussexes. A few months ago, there was tons of buzz that Meghan Markle was going to be the next face of Dior or the next brand ambassador signed to the French design house. But then that deal got completely squashed in the press by Dior themselves. A spokesperson came forward to say, "We haven't even talked to the Meg." But the issue was much more complex than just that and that alone. Throughout 2023, the rumors were Duchess Dior was gonna be a thing. Meghan Markle was vying to become the newest member of the official brand ambassadors for the French design house, whose crew of established ambassadors includes Jennifer Lawrence, Natalie Portman, Jisoo, Charlize Theron, Yara Shahidi, and Anya Taylor-Joy. Out of absolute thin air, we had all this buzz and rumors and headlines, just a flurry of them for months and months throughout 2023, that Meghan was in talks to become a brand ambassador. And the headlines were all really vague, didn't really peg down a specific source, and it was all in talks. They are in talks that this might happen. And I thought this was odd right from the start because of this, and these, and all of this. I thought, this doesn't make sense. Christian Dior was founded in Paris, France, and has become the most popular luxury brand online and has a glamorous and luxurious aesthetic that's known for high-end and high-fashion designs. Even at the Golden Globes this year, we saw lots of Dior haute couture and other Dior designs. They often feature bold and elaborate embellishments. They use a lot of feminine, modern, classic styling. That means that their clothes often have a romantic feel with feminine, flowy fabrics, delicate details, soft colors, but they also maintain a really classic and timeless feel with just a bit of a modern twist. Updating traditional styles with contemporary touches to create a unique and sophisticated look is something they specialize in. And after hearing that, I'm sure it's even more difficult to see the Meg fitting into that anywhere. She just doesn't have the right vibe for the brand, and it would seem that she didn't understand that fully. Meg seems to be attempting a modern minimalist aesthetic that combines a classic chic with a casual elegance, because she does attempt, just not very successfully, to do these sorts of elevated pieces worn in a more casual way, and sort of mixing the sort of high-low is the attempt that she's going for, but she doesn't bring in enough of that low. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, tends to be really successful at high-low dressing, which I can't say that phrase without thinking of Ina Garten, who talks about high-low cuisine, but regardless. Catherine, Princess of Wales, will wear, for example, high street earrings or a bag or a blazer or even trousers with some more elevated pieces and maybe a more elevated dress, for example. And she does it seamlessly. It always works really, really nicely together, and it flows. It makes sense. It's done with intention. The Meg tries to wear these really expensive, elevated pieces more casually, which ends up looking like she's dressing down really fancy clothes. And it just looks incongruous. It doesn't look quite right, and it doesn't come off the same. What does this sort of modern minimalist, classic chic, casual elegance, what does that really mean? It means that the Meg is going for things that are often monochrome and have clean lines. Currently, the beige colors are kind of on trend, or at least they have been. Hopefully that trend doesn't last too long because it's not that flattering of a color. But she tries to bring in that sort of beige color palette a lot, but she goes for muted color palettes. Even when she's wearing color, it's often something a little bit more muted and subtle. Like she wears a lot of black, creams, ivories, neutrals, browns. She doesn't opt for really bright, bold color very often. Occasionally she'll go for something navy, but that's really the most that we see her in terms of color, at least lately. Celebrities who tend to gravitate towards a similar style aesthetic but do so more successfully than the Meg include Jennifer Aniston, Angelina Jolie, Mary-Kate Olsen. Oftentimes, the Meg misses the mark due to three major mistakes that these other fashionistas just simply do not make. She often wears things that are ill-fitting, meaning it's way too long, she doesn't have it tailored properly, it doesn't fit her shoulders, or it doesn't fit her waist, or it's too tight or too big in certain areas. So not wearing something that fits your body properly, no matter what style aesthetic you're going for, it will never look as flattering, with a few exceptions, because skipping the tailoring makes it appear amateurish, and it ruins the clean lines that this sort of casual elegance and classic chic modern minimalist really rely on. Because the color palette can be a lot more plain and muted, because there's often more simple designs, simple textures, elevated basics, and layering involved, there's less of these like frilly details or ruffles or patterns or embroidery. There's less of that in this sort of style aesthetic, and because of that, the fit becomes all the more prominent to the eye. So when the Meg goes out into the world with something that's ill-fitting, doesn't matter if it would otherwise look nice on her. Because she doesn't have it fitted to her, then it looks sloppy and it ruins the effect. The second mistake she tends to make that ruins her attempts towards this style aesthetic are visible foundations or lack thereof. Not wearing the right type of bra or having your bra line be visible panty line, and other sorts of mistakes like this, like not wearing good foundation garments, smoothing undergarments, things like smoothing tanks. Doesn't necessarily always have to be shapewear, which is often kind of tight and restrictive and not as comfortable to wear. Just simply wearing things that are not taking those precautions to give you a sleek, smooth finish is also ruining the effect, because it adds visual noise. It looks sloppy, it looks messy, and it really takes away from that classic chic and elegance that she seems to be wanting to try to achieve with her style. The third mistake that she makes that takes away from the style aesthetic she's trying to achieve is ignoring her proportions and balance. Clean lines and monochrome looks are a really great option for Meghan Markle because they tend to be a little bit more slimming, they tend to be more streamlined, and oftentimes lack drawing attention to the waistline. She just tends to screw that up because she will ignore her proportions and ignore balance, throw that to the wind, and she wears things with really high bulky belts or things that come up too high on her short torso, accentuating her out of proportion torso or her particularly thin limbs. She doesn't do things to balance that and rather ends up widening herself in her outfits, which is not the right approach for her. Now, widening yourself in an outfit here and there is totally normal. It happens to everybody. Not every outfit needs to or will be perfect. That's just rarely a thing for most people. But the fact is that Meghan Markle has a consistent pattern of regularly or frequently or almost always, I would say 95% of the outfits I have seen her in, they tend to draw attention to the waistline, they tend to be widening, or they have a lot of shoulder heavy vibes. So that is just going to accentuate the proportions that she has naturally, which are ever so slightly out of proportion. She consistently chooses things that widen her shoulder line and her waistline, then it's enhancing even further that sort of boxy torso on thin limbs sort of a look. When you wear something that looks out of proportion or doesn't achieve good balance, then it tends to take away from the overall effect, and it draws attention more to the proportions rather than the look itself. When you wear something that balances your proportions or simply complements your proportions well, for example, just lean into one aspect of your proportions, not all three at once, for example. When you wear things that complement your proportions or balance them, then people are able to look at the outfit and enjoy the beauty of the outfit or appreciate the style that you're bringing. And they can look at that aesthetic and see how it's advantageous or how it looks lovely on you. But when you don't create balance in your outfit, then it tends to create focal points of those problem areas or so-called out of proportion areas, and then we're consistently drawn visually to just staring at what's out of balance because we cannot help it. We tend to be drawn to balance and appreciate balance in things that we see. Visually, we like when we see something that's balanced and even. It just looks right to us, or it looks more symmetrical, it looks nice. Now, I'm not saying things need to be perfectly symmetrical, absolutely not. Asymmetry is great, but proportionally and balance-wise, we do like to see balance. Some of the best designs out there are really well balanced, but not necessarily symmetrical, if that makes sense. And so whenever we see an outfit on somebody that's very much out of balance, or they just aren't achieving any degree of balance in their outfit, it tends to be really distracting. So those three mistakes that she makes on a regular basis really prevent her from successfully pulling off this aesthetic that she's going for. So with all that said, it's clear that the Meg would never cut it as a Dior ambassador as it stands right now. Dior wants elegance. They want polished looks. They want feminine vibes. The Meg rarely delivers polished style because the poor fit and poor styling choices, like the wrong hair for an outfit or the wrong shoes for the outfit, completely ruin a polished finish. She doesn't lean into feminine looks hardly at all either. It's quite rare to see an outfit from the Meg and think, wow, this is a really feminine style aesthetic. It would be lovely if she would try, though. I think that she would be very successful with a modern feminine aesthetic, but she doesn't go for it. But regardless, Dior very much leans into the feminine, so they wouldn't be drawn to somebody who often leans away from it or just simply doesn't embrace a feminine aesthetic to their look. You see, when you look at somebody like Jennifer Lawrence or Natalie Portman or Charlize Theron or, any of these ladies, Jisoo, they're very, very much feminine aesthetic type of ladies. They lean into that feminine vibe. It doesn't mean that they never play with masculine styles. You will see them wear suit pieces or things like that or blazers all the time, but they still have that feminine vibe to it. Dior very much is down with sticking with that femininity, and I appreciate that in the brand because, that's what so many women out there want and lean into, and it's one of those things that make their designs special, is that they have a bit of a delicate vibe to their style and to their fashion. The Meg doesn't really align with that. The Meg also attempts to go for elegance, and at times certain elements on their own of her wardrobe can totally lean into elegance, and that one piece here or one aspect there can totally be elegant in her look, but ends up ruined with a poor fit or sloppy styling choices or visible bra lines, to name a few. It immediately takes away from any elegance that would have otherwise been achieved. Take this beige disaster here. Her hair and makeup and even her jewelry appear very, very elegant. Even the fact that her dress is all monochrome here, all one solid color, and doesn't draw a huge focal point to the waistline are good styling choices. They do convey a degree of elegance, but it is completely ruined by the fact that the dress is dragging on the floor. It has these sloppy split seams, and it has this crooked seam across the front that's looking really unintentional around this area with this big, huge gape at the back. All of those aspects to this look completely obliterate an otherwise elegant start to her appearance on this red carpet event. So it's clear that Dior and the Meg were not a good match, but that had me wondering, where did these rumors come from in the first place? Because clearly they did not come from Dior. After these rumors had been circulating for a little while, a spokesperson for Dior in Paris told the press that the reports are unfounded, stressing that there have been no contract negotiations or recent contact with Meghan Markle at all. The narrative spun by many news outlets was that Markle's talent agency in Hollywood, William Morris Endeavor, WME, was pursuing a marquee fashion deal in a bid to blunt the negative publicity surrounding her and her husband's strained relationship with the British royal family and their split from Spotify. Like many other fashion houses, Dior had occasionally dressed Markle when she was a working member of the royal family alongside Prince Harry, as well as a number of other royals. Harry also donned a Dior suit for their recent coronation of King Charles, but there was absolutely no contact between Dior and the Meg in regards to a sponsorship or a contract of any kind. No contact. Once I saw the phrase Duchess Dior in the press, I knew it was from the Meg because only she would come up with something like that. We have seen the Meg do this a lot, but talent agencies like WME will also do this. They'll put a rumor out there, it's like a feeler, to see if there's a public appetite or public interest in this. And if there's a good response from the public and the press alike, a rumor then can initiate negotiations for a deal of some kind. So it's a very common practice in show business and a very common practice that the Meg has used in the past. She has done it with Bodyguard and Kevin Costner. She's done it with a number of other things. She does it with Instagram a lot to try to see if now's a good time to strike on the Instagram comeback or whatever. There never were any talks, not just due to her style, but due to their reputation. Because Dior not only denied the rumors, but they said there's been zero contact. They're like, we aren't even interested in the Meg. So ouch for her, I suppose. But as we established, she just doesn't have that flawless, polished, feminine image that they would be looking for. But perhaps more importantly, the Meg and Prince Harry are toxic right now. They are toxic for brands. They are toxic for consumers. Any polarizing figure out there will be a repellent to customers. That's why you see brands drop a celebrity when they say something controversial. I mean, you saw it with Kanye West when he started saying weird stuff. All the brand deals went away. They just immediately sever ties. And usually they have in their contract that they are able to drop you without cause whenever they want at their own discretion, and there's no, consequence in terms of them. They don't have to pay you anything. It's just over with and done with, because really it's more advantageous for the celebrity than it is for the brand. So the brand makes sure that they are protected in that if you screw up or you start saying weird stuff, then they can just reject you completely right then and there. And so that happens anytime a celebrity screws up bigly. And the Meg and Harry have already done that. So no brands going forward are going to have much interest in connecting with them because of that toxicity that they now have about them. But furthermore, Meghan just simply isn't in the same caliber as the other Dior ambassadors. We're talking huge names, movie stars, professional athletes, huge models, singers, people who are a big deal in the industry and who are working actively in the industry and have big careers. The Meg simply isn't the same category here as them at all. So she wouldn't be delivering very much value to Dior in any way, shape, or form. Then Dior turned around and dressed Queen Camilla over the summer and followed it up with securing the actress who plays Catherine, Princess of Wales, in The Crown. It really added salt to the situation, I suppose. Or it was Dior just simply going about their business, making it clear that they really only do business with real royals and real celebrities. The next question to ask is, why did the Meg set her sights on Dior in the first place, specifically? Why choose that brand? Surely there's other fashion houses or just other brands, perhaps less glamorous or high-end, but still, what made her pick Dior specifically? You're not going to like the answer because it's creepy. It leads back to Princess Diana yet again. She wore Dior a lot, but especially in the 90s, as her separation from then Prince Charles and the royal family, and then her subsequent divorce, she had this period of time where people believed Diana to have more freedom in her wardrobe and an even stronger personal style. It was during this season of her life where she wore Dior much more often. The Lady Dior bag thing happened, and she was wearing a lot more of their fashions around the time of her split from the royal family onward. The Lady Dior bag was created in 1995 and was named after Diana, Princess of Wales. It was gifted to her by the First Lady of France at the time. She was so attached to it, in fact, that of all of Diana's contributions to style, this may be her most enduring one. It's a quintessential example of how a celebrity and a brand can come together to create a bestseller. But by the time Lady Dior bag became a thing in 95, Princess Diana had already become a huge juggernaut when it came to fashion and style. She had already established herself within the royal family as one of the most fashionable members, and as one of the members of the royal family who had that strong, soft power when it came to selling clothing or selling accessories and things of that nature. So her effect on the fashion industry was already well established at this time. Dior naming the bag the Lady Dior bag was honestly a little bit more advantageous for Dior at that point. So it tipped the scales when you have somebody who's that famous and that powerful and that impactful on a fashion industry. For a design house to then collaborate with them brings them up higher and gives them a bit of a boost. It would be the other way around for Meghan. She has nothing to offer Dior except maybe bad press, so Dior would not be gaining anything from working with her. So completely different ballgame here. And Meghan once again was blind to the fact that Princess Diana had over a decade of establishing herself within the royal family and as a humanitarian and as somebody with a strong public image before any of these moves were made when it came to separating from the royal family and securing deals and things of that nature. But ultimately, it's clear that this Duchess Dior idea was just another manifestation of Meghan Markle's pattern of fixation on Diana. I can understand to an extent why she might be drawn to Dior or inspired by Princess Diana. Many people around the world were inspired by her. And Dior is an amazing brand. They make spectacular clothes and accessories. And they do have a history of royal connection. When you pair this up with these other facts of Meghan Markle copying Princess Diana like to a T on a creepy level, then it takes on this obsession status, and it's borderline unsettling in a lot of ways. Up until she started trying to court Dior, so to speak, by having Harry wear Dior suits a handful of times and her wearing Dior a handful of times, up until that point, it wasn't like she was wearing Dior consistently all of the time. In fact, she seemed to be really drawn to Givenchy, who had zero interest in pairing up with her or doing any sort of an ambassador deal with her either. Back at the beginning of her days with the royal family, she used a designer who was a British designer but working with Givenchy. Givenchy was listed and credited as the fashion house who designed her wedding gown, and she wore very early on a number of Givenchy pieces. She was really leaning towards that brand at the beginning. So she only shifted towards Dior a little later on. It would be a weird coincidence, but we know it's not a coincidence. So it's just kind of a weird thing to do, to think, well, Princess Diana gravitated towards Dior when she left the royal family, so the Meg is going to do the same. And regardless of her style not even matching their aesthetic and her pattern of behavior not being normal, all of these sorts of things just completely ignored, thinking that she would get a brand deal with Dior is just so bizarre and out of touch. It would seem the only reason why she wanted to have a brand deal with Dior is to emulate Princess Diana. Now, to be clear, Princess Diana didn't have a deal with Dior, but she did have the bag named after her, and she did wear a lot of Dior during that season of her life. So it's not exactly the same, but it's essentially a modern interpretation of it. These days, a brand ambassador or brand deal with a big fashion house like this is totally normal. They dress you for your red carpet events. You still get to pick between a few different things. Usually, they have you participate in ad campaigns. It can be very lucrative for the celebrity, but it's also really great for the fashion house because they get their designs seen on the red carpet regularly. For events, that celebrity will wear their clothing or use their bags, things like that. They get seen with that brand a lot, and it helps boost both. It's a good mutualism sort of relationship. It would just seem that the Meg's motivations were not genuine. She wasn't a genuine fan or, super drawn to their designs. I saw recently with Florence Pugh. She had worn Valentino lots and lots and lots. Like almost every red carpet appearance, she was wearing Valentino and then landed a brand deal with them to where now she's one of their brand ambassadors. They dress her for the majority of her red carpet appearances lately, and they have this nice mutual relationship now. But it was clear that Florence was a big fan of Valentino leading up to it and was drawn to their designs and would buy them and wear them on her own accord initially. But it would seem Meghan was not a true fan of Dior. She simply thought, Diana liked Dior, so I'll like Dior. So it didn't have that authentic, organic, or genuine approach of being somebody who just genuinely really likes and appreciates the brand and the designs of Christian Dior. She didn't have that even. So it was a really incongruous and disingenuous attempt at establishing a connection with Dior, and it didn't work out. She then blamed the royal family, and she put out some press to say that the royal family was blocking her getting brand deals. Absolutely not. The royal family doesn't need to do that. They don't meddle in commercial deals whatsoever. I don't know how they could possibly have any control over what the Christian Dior fashion house decides to do or who they decide to partner with or dress. That is absurd. But this is yet another sign of Meghan Markle's toxic behaviors and patterns, that she cannot see that there was a reason that traced back to her why Dior didn't want to partner with her. Dior didn't want to partner with the Meg because of the Meg, because she has created a rather toxic brand for herself by lying and talking negatively about people, even past business associates, and severing relationships with people left and right, just not having a very good reputation in that realm, talking bad about an entire country, an entire group being the press, or an entire organization being the royal family and the monarchy, speaking out negatively about them so much repeatedly over years and years is one of the reasons why Dior wouldn't want to work with her, or any other brand wouldn't want to work with her. And it's not because they're loyal to the royal family, but rather because that's just not a good look. It's not positive, it doesn't draw people to you, it's distracting, and it would forever associate Dior with those negative ideas and concepts. I also can't seem to fathom that her own fashion and style mistakes are part of why a fashion house of that caliber would not want to work with her. The fact that she doesn't present herself in a way that aligns with their brand styling and aesthetic, but also she just doesn't present herself very well in public. She's not very polished, and she doesn't have the best presentation due to those errors. Meg also simply cannot fathom the fact that her celebrity status is not a high enough caliber. She is not an A-list celebrity to work with a brand like Dior, of all things. So the fact that she couldn't even see why, that she had to blame someone else and then put out press statements, leaks, that must be the reason why she's not getting deals, just shows her character even more. Because it's so absurd, and once again, not taking any accountability or responsibility for her own situation and her own actions and choices, not looking objectively at oneself, all of those sorts of things. It's just another sign of that toxicity. So I don't see any brands wanting to partner up with her in 2024 based on how this went in 2023. I think it's pretty clear by these PR people and the amount of data and research that these companies have access to see which celebrities have a good reputation or not, and what people are actually saying about them. The people with spending power, what are they saying about these celebrities? No one's going to want to partner with Meghan Markle, because anybody with any degree of spending power can see that Meghan Markle is not someone of good character and simply not a good choice for a brand. But this has inspired me to create a special fashion edition showing all of the best Dior looks, especially those that the royal ladies have worn. So be sure to subscribe so you do not miss that upcoming Dior fashion edition. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I cannot wait to read them. I hope you have a very happy day, and I will see you next time. Bye!